Oh, let's get ready for Monday Mortgage Minute with your hosts, Tom McNamara and Bruce Woodburn.
Hey, I don't know about all this. The technology right here is going nuts on us. Thank God we're not getting paid for our technical skills on this.
Right?
Happy Monday. Hey, the market's closed. It's President's Day. God bless all our presidents. However, I don't have the day off. Have you got the day off?
I wasn't sent the memo. No.
The only thing that's off for the banks. So I can't fund a loan today, but I can originate one.
My dog's got the day off too. They're not working.
Yeah. Are schools closed?
Yeah, my wife, her school's closed, but she's working. They're doing like a teacher work day, doing their stuff. But yeah, so it's a day, right? It's a dreary day here in Florida anyway. So, but hey, man,
I want to talk to you about a couple of things you and I have covered, but
Yeah.
I think it's really important. Tell us a little bit about the Housing for the 21st Century Act.
Yeah, so I follow a lot of the stuff going on in housing locally or statewide in Florida, and all of a sudden, out of freaking nowhere, the federal government has just like dropped a bomb. I haven't even had time to dig into it and understand everything, but they dropped an entire bomb on housing, and it's a good bomb, I think.
Well, let's talk about that. So there's a
Yeah.
couple of bills that have passed, and I think it's already passed the House, and now it's got to go to the Senate. Is that right?
Yeah,
So-
not completely passed yet. It's like it passed the House
Yeah.
390-9.
Yep. So I don't know who would be not against it. Rand Paul, who knows, he
Rand
votes
Paul.
no for everything, right?
Mhm.
So who knows? So just a couple of them. It exempts certain housing related activities from the environmental review process, including certain construction improvements or rehabilitation of residential buildings. Now, if I read into that, are they just going to make it easier for builders to get permits? Is that what this is all
I
about
think-
here?
Yeah, so I've kind of I'll say that, like, building out pillars of what this thing is, the biggest focus is not on demand side, it's on supply side, right?
Right.
So the biggest focus, for instance, and this doesn't affect us in the residential world, but one of the big things is they're going to reform how designs of multifamily buildings are. They're going to get rid of what they call single stair, right? So they're going to allow for wider through unit homes where you actually can have an apartment that, instead of stopping at the wall, actually goes all the way through. You can have walls on either, or windows on either end, right? And the design goes back to some fire code things and stuff like that, which are of course good, right? We'll still have to comply with that, but it's actually going to be able to allow them to make multifamily homes feel more like a real home.
Well,
Right.
there's
Sure.
nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong
It's a pretty simple statement. So, which leads me to believe that there's probably more behind it.
Of course.
Here's
But
another one.
I say that it'll lower cost per unit of building multifamily, right? The other one is what they're calling pattern books, right? So I've built an ADU. I've built an
Okay.
accessory dwelling unit before, and it cost me about $5,000 to create the plan. Well, now they're talking about having pattern books where there's already pre-approved plans, and they're going to tell cities and counties, you must have pattern book plans available. So now, instead of me as a homeowner having to go out and spend $5,000 to get a design done for an ADU, I basically go onto my county's website or my city's website, pick the one I want, and say I want to build that in my backyard. And
Well, but then you still have certain setback requirements. You still have to adhere to all the other regulations.
absolutely, but I don't have to go out and pay $5,000 for a stupid plan, right?
I love it.
Because it doesn't have to be custom. Now I could pay the city $300 and get the plan.
Yeah.
And the plan's already pre-approved. So now the city only has to approve setbacks and drainage requirements, and that they don't have to say, well, you don't have enough outlets, you don't have enough fans, you don't have the right this or that.
It's already approved.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's already approved. I got one for you, because when I first saw this, I went, I don't like this at all. But It's because you got to read between the lines. So here's one. Excludes veterans' disability benefits from being considered as income for purposes of determining eligibility for Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing VASH programs.
Correct.
So when I saw that, I went, oh my God, you couldn't possibly be so cruel to a veteran that we're no longer going to allow them to use their VA disability benefits to qualify for a mortgage. That would be horrible.
Yeah, but that's not the case, right? So when you look into it, it's poorly worded. Maybe it has a double negative, right? But what they're doing is right now, if a veteran is disabled and getting enough income from that disability, income from the VA itself, that they suddenly become disqualified for getting housing assistance.
For
This
other
is saying,
benefits.
we're just going to push that aside for the housing assistance side, still give them the housing assistance, and they get their disability benefit. So it actually is going to help the veterans be able to get into homes a little bit easier.
Well, I'll tell you what, they sure did know how to word that horribly, because if anybody saw that, they would not have voted for it. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, because I think it's important that people understand that. And there's a few of them in here that just don't really make a lot of sense to me. We'll have to dig deeper. We can't cover them all. But here's one that eliminates the requirements that a manufactured home must be constructed with a permanent chassis.
Correct.
Okay, so now manufactured homes, I guess, to fall under a manufactured home, have to have this chassis on it, and then they trailer it out to a site, and they either put it on a slab or on concrete pylons with tie downs. So this is eliminating the fact that it has to even be on a chassis. So they could be more like a modular home rather than a mobile or a manufactured home, which in my opinion is a huge plus, because I don't know if folks know it, but they pay more in interest rate for a manufactured home than they would a stick-built or block-built home, or even a modular home. So I think that would be better for people all the way around.
Absolutely. And I'll just give you here's the absolute simplest thing. If you want to look at anything else, just forget everything else. That stupid chassis that's only used between the manufacturer and the site costs between $7,000 and $10,000.
Right.
You don't have to buy it anymore.
You don't need.
I mean, this is, now I'm sure
have
there's
to transport it, and it's still going to have some rigid, I know this much because I've had a lot of dealings with manufactured homes and modular homes. Now, modular homes are different than a prefab. So a modular home is much like a manufactured home, where it's built in sections and delivered. Okay. And then what they do is they wait and they put the fascia, and they might tie in, some of the things once it's there, but they're piecing two pieces together, much like a double wide. But it's prefabricated and built. Now, I know when they're delivered, they can oftentimes have cracks in the drywall, cracks in the ceiling, just from the stress. I mean, it doesn't take that much to have that kind of damage. So they're going to have to figure out something, but it at least now puts them all on a level playing field. So I'm not going, what year was your manufactured home built? How, is it right? All the years,
absolutely.
These guidelines.
The other thing I see in here looking at it is, and again, I'm not a manufactured home expert, right? But they're saying that it'll add design flexibility and the ability to go potentially multi-story, right? So right now you can only go wider, right? You got a single wide, double wide, triple wide, right? Now you're going to be able to go up. So, I think it'll improve. It makes sense. It should improve the overall construction method as well, because
they've come a long way though, too.
Right. But I mean, it doesn't have to worry about meeting standards from 1974, which is when HUD set down how trailers work. Right.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a good thing. I mean, honestly, anything to help the supply side is going to help people.
Absolutely.
Right? Demand side, when they give free money out and they give grants, all that's good, right? But unless there's something to buy, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is all going to make it easier. You can tell it made sense because they all voted for it. So it must make sense, right?
Yep. I'll give you another one. This one's going to be interesting because it's something I generally have a hard time supporting until now I see it. So now we'll see how it works out. But somehow they're talking about assisting families that are renters with a rent to own program. So there might be a federally managed, hopefully not supplied, hopefully just managed rent to own program. So it's like, hey, you want to get into the house, we're going to let you rent it for a period of time. And while you rent it, you're going to build up an escrow payment and then you get to buy it, right? So
you can already do that.
I know, but there's so much scam in that. It's kind of like solar, right? Solar's great, except how it's sold. It's
terrible.
I think rent to own is the same way, right? The concept works, but there's a lot of danger in it and there's a lot of scammers in it.
Most of the upside on a rent to own is for the seller, not the buyer.
Correct. Absolutely.
And the reason for that is the buyer does not even have the ability to exit and facilitate the transaction based on the contractual time. It's like if I'm going to consult with a client, and this is a perfect example. I've done it 100 times. Client says, well, what do you think about me doing a rent to own? Okay, let's find out what is your credit score going to be on the 13th month? How much money are you going to be able to save? How much money can the seller put aside to attribute toward rent? Because the rules are that the only money that a seller can put aside toward rent and apply it toward your purchase is any money that exceeds the standard rent that would be charged in your area. So if your landlord says, hey, you pay me $1,500 a month, I'll put $500 away, but the average rent there is $1,500, it ain't going to happen. And you just got screwed because you can't use it.
Yep, that's it. So hopefully, I haven't seen the details on that. Hopefully those rules maybe, fix things up a little bit. I can tell you the two things that Trump has been pushing that aren't included in here, okay? One is a ban on large institutional investors buying homes, which, I think he's out there touting it and maybe he believes it, maybe he doesn't, I don't know. But I think it's interesting how many people are against it now that were probably the same people that were for it before. So that's fun. But
you know what? I understand it when you say it fast, but I would really have to dive into how many, and I've seen statistics on it, how many of these institutions actually have, enough property to control the market, which is, there's a couple of things that whole bill is for. The bill is so that the average family that needs to buy a home is not in competition with a hedge fund that wants to undercut the house or pay cash for it and knock the poor family out of the deal.
Right. So the thing is that here's I love statistics because you can make them tell you whatever you want, right? Here's two facts I'll tell you that contradict each other, right? And show you how it can be presented. One, nationwide, all the institutions together own less than 1% of all the housing stock.
All together.
However, Atlanta, they own 23%.
Yeah, that's huge. I thought it was less than that, but 23% is huge.
I think it's not large ones.
Jacksonville is heavy. I think Tampa's got a lot. Yeah, I don't know where Orlando is, but
it's like 9 or 10%.
But you could see where they could start to control rent and they could control housing. And I'm not in for any rent or housing control. But when you have a monopoly that can control the market, it could get a little dangerous. Absolutely. I don't know how much that's happening, but if you let it get too far out of control, it could happen.
I think in a few markets it has. I really do. And unfortunately, those are the markets right now that they experienced a big grow up, and they're actually the ones experiencing the most downside because a lot of those hedge funds are selling.
Well, that could very well be true, but you'd look at Tom and Mary that are trying to get an FHA loan and struggling to do it, and they need the seller to pick up a few closing costs, and then you got these open Spain companies, whatever they're called, and they come in there and go, no appraisal, we'll pay you cash, and they're going to give the seller maybe $8-10 grand less than they would have gotten. But they're like, you still don't have to screw around with this poor family, and then you're out.
Well, I will say that I track that pretty well on the loose side. I don't track the deep data, but I can tell you all these companies right now, they're undercutting the true value of the home by 50 to 100,000. They're no longer overpaying.
Yeah. Well, they were stupid because they overpaid, and then their stockholders went to hell in a handbasket. So, but what they were doing is that was another way that they were trying to control the market. They figured, I'll overpay today, but I'll control the market, and tomorrow it won't be overpaid.
Right, because they'll keep inflating the market. But at some point, it's just like a Ponzi scheme. At some point, it stops.
Somebody's going to pay. Somebody's going to pay.
Well, hey, I think, you know what? At the end of the day, I haven't dug into this, Bill. I will be over the next 2 or 3 months.
And we'll put it on our website. You can go to WeBringYouHome.com and see these. You can go to Bruce Woodburn, the Lone Ranger YouTube. What's your YouTube channel over there?
My YouTube channel is
YouTube channel, whatever it is.
YouTube channel. It's Florida Real Estate Insider. But you can also find me at themcnamaraexperience.com. It's right up there.
It's right up there. Themcnamaraexperience.com. You don't have a tube channel?
I do. Florida Real Estate Insider. Tube channel.
Oh, God. That's why we do this. We're not professional in this. We're just two dudes trying to help people understand what's going on out there.
Absolutely.
And that's all we are. Yeah, we're not Joe Rogans.
Well, hey, Bruce, I think we went a little bit over time today, but great conversation.
Happy President's Day to you, and I will see you. We got a lot of business going on out there. Let's put some deals together. See you at the closing table. Have a great week.
Have a good one.